Good evening. My name is Sandra Craig, and I represent the Etiquette Foundation of Illinois. You are watching a live interactive call-in television program brought to you on CAN TV 21. Let's talk etiquette. During the next 25 minutes, I will be your host, and Mr. Nathan Wright will be my co-host. I invite you to call in with your questions and comments. Our phone line is 312-738-1060. Again, our number is 312-738-1060. Please call in, let us hear from you, and call a neighbor. Tell them to tune in to Let's Talk Etiquette. Good evening, Mr. Wright.
Why, good evening to you as well, Miss Craig. It's always a pleasure to be here with you, and I'd certainly enjoy just being your co-host.
Well, thank you. I enjoy you being here, too. I couldn't do it without you.
Well, thank you so much.
All righty.
Yes.
Mr. Wright, tonight we're going to talk about a very hot topic.
Okay.
Violence.
Okay.
Violence in the city of Chicago.
That's a hot topic.
Mr. Wright, why is etiquette training the answer to violence, not only in Chicago, but other cities as well?
Well, Sandra, I think etiquette training is extremely crucial, extremely important to curtailing violence, because what it does, it gives you a set of principles to live your life by, to be able to know what is right from wrong, to understand being civil is a quality that every human being should strive for. And etiquette teaches you that. This is an educational problem. What we are going through in the city of Chicago and all around this country is an educational problem. And if you educate your citizenry to understand what it is to be a human being and have a set of rules to live their life by, then you won't have the kind of degeneracy, the kind of violence that we are witnessing. And that's our solution to this particular problem.
Okay, I have to say I do agree.
Right.
Now, Mr. Wright, I agree,
Yes,
but some may disagree
of course.
that etiquette training will stop the violence. Is there any documentation you can share to back your belief?
Well, the internet is replete with data that supports what etiquette does, the importance of etiquette. We have a long history of using etiquette that you can go all the way back to ancient Egypt and see the consequences of having a value system of the people that allow for them to be organized well enough to build the pyramids. And so it's not a new subject. This is nothing that we can consider to be new. This entire country was organized around a set of rules, a set of values that made it possible for people to live together and coexist together and compromise in their behavior so that they can be productive. And this is why we see this great city, this great country. It was built on those core values. And today I actually brought an etiquette book in with me.
Okay.
And as you can see, this book is as thick as a dictionary.
Yes.
Because it gives you your entire plan, your entire value system that will make it possible for you to know what to do, when to do it, and how to do it. So I'm encouraging everybody out there, get you an etiquette book. Have this book in your library. And you don't have to buy a new one. You can simply buy an old one, because the information here is just as important as a book that is new. So spend $4 or $5 and purchase you an etiquette book.
Yes. Now, Mr. Wright, I agree. Now, you mentioned that all the way back to the pyramids. So let's come up a little from the pyramids. Now, even when you were growing up, Mr. Wright,
yes,
can you tell us about how your community, your neighborhood, how your neighbors got along, and what did a day look like in your neighborhood as far as communicating and being respectful one to another?
An excellent question. And it's so regrettable that environment that I was raised in as a child was not maintained. That was a core set of values and that community represented. And everyone on the block knew what those core values were, and they adhered to them. And so as a child, I was admonished by neighbors. I was admonished by the people who lived across the street or in the school. Those core values were shared by nearly everyone in the community because I never saw any difference in the way the adults treated their children that I received at home.
Okay.
So those values were very, very important. It made that community a whole community, a thriving community. And yet we don't have that today, so unfortunately.
Right, and I remember you saying that you knew your neighbors and your neighbors knew your parents. They even socialized together.
Absolutely, absolutely. They had a general agreement. The parents in the community agreed with one another. I'm sure I wasn't privy to the conversation, but I'm sure they agreed with one another. This is how we want to raise our children. So the person across the street was a parent in many regards because that person could admonish me if I was doing something that I should not be doing, and they would lecture me on my behavior and what is appropriate behavior for me. I was a representative of my family.
Yes.
And so I never did anything to embarrass my father or embarrass my mother. And so they were immediately told if I did, because I'm not representing the family. And my parents' values were supposed to be my values.
Yes, yes. Now, you mentioned that the neighbors could correct you, but at the same time, your parents probably could correct the other children in the neighborhood.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if my parents saw a child doing something that was inappropriate, my parents told their parents. And in some instances, especially in the South, some of those neighbors could very well administer a whooping
Okay.
to us.
Can you imagine what would happen today?
Well, my parents said you deserved it. You needed that whooping. So it wasn't like that person did anything wrong.
Right, but I'm saying, can you imagine today, Mr. Wright, if you were to punish or discipline a neighbor's child, and because you saw them doing something inappropriate, can you just imagine what would happen today?
I would probably get arrested.
Not only would you get arrested, you might get shot by the neighbor.
By the neighbor, right?
For talking or saying something to their child.
Absolutely.
And this wasn't anything probably when you were growing up that your parents talked about. It was more or less an unspoken, agreement.
Agreement. Yes.
You look out for mine, I'll look out for yours.
Right.
And I remember when I was growing up, like if my mom and dad were taking us somewhere, and my friends, many of them, their parents didn't have cars at that time.
Right.
And so my parents would let them go along with us, of course, with the parents' permission. And that was because they wanted them to experience some of the same things that we were experiencing.
Yes.
I mean, now we're a little bit more selfish. If you don't have it and you can't go, I'm sorry.
No sharing. No sharing.
And that's part of etiquette, too.
That is part of it. And I could go across the street and eat at the neighbor's house. If they would offer me food, if I was hungry, I could certainly partake of that food. But that was a common value system in the community. Everyone looked out for the children. So etiquette was a part of the community, was a part of the standards of the community. They may not have used the word etiquette, but they had a value system everyone was in agreement with. That is what's missing today in our communities.
Yes.
And that's so unfortunate, and this is why we're having the violence we're having. One of the causes of it.
Right. Well, I believe we have a caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, good evening to both of you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I in theory, actually, you know what? I actually agree with you guys. I really do in terms of how to socialize a human being. But when you say, but a couple things, I'll just comment on a couple things. But when you say the solution to what's happening today, I'm going to have to disagree with that, because the people that are engaging in the violence and the gangs and all of that, they're too far gone for any type of formalized etiquette program. And then when you got that great big thick etiquette book and you said, I want you guys to go out and buy this book, people don't read anymore.
You
guys,
get it online.
They don't read anymore. And even if they were going to, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
No, like I said, they can get it online. They can read it online.
Well, yeah, but then reading it and then having them go and teach the children the foundation of etiquette, or the foundational aspects of etiquette, these are the same people that haven't been able to teach these children how to live in a normal society up to this point. I think that there's so many of them that's too far gone. I think that we can take an etiquette program and install it from, say, maybe kindergarten on up through 5th grade, and then, hope for the best. But, we need to have some type of armed intervention in these neighborhoods, because the streets aren't safe. I'd like to get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
Go first.
Well, I want to say, if we get to the point we have no hope, then we're doomed. I have to keep hope alive. I know that there's murders every day and violence in our city, but if everybody was to give up hope, where would we be? We'd be hopeless. I don't want to believe that it's too far. I believe it's escalated, but I do believe anything can be ended if we have the right amount of people, the right program, the right plans, everything working together. We need to come together to do it. But I don't want to believe that it's too late. I don't want to believe that this is a hopeless society, because what does that say for the children that are coming up now? If we've given up, they're not going to have a chance. So I understand it's bad, and it's been bad for a long time, and that I agree with, but I'm not hopeless yet.
Well, a good question, and I'm from the same school of thought as Ms. Craig is. I would not give up on any person, and I say that because I'm a mentor, and I have taken some young men who were doing some atrocious things. Some of them may have even been guilty of killing someone. I don't know that personally. They didn't confess to me and say they had done something as atrocious as murder, killing someone. But I know they had a criminal background. And even with them, I was able to turn them around. Right now, I am a etiquette teacher of ex-offenders. These individuals have gone to prison. Some of them have done 10, 15, 20 years, and they are out of prison right today. And I would invite you to come and sit in on my class with those men and women. And within that 2 hours, you will see a total change in their behavior, in their attitude, and their approach to life. It's a matter of understanding what is required of you in this society. And so I'm not the person could be a murderer, could have been on death row, whatever. I'm not about to give up on that person, because that person can turn his or her life around if they have the right set of information that will allow them to do that. So I would suggest that if we took men like you, and for every man like you would go out and mentor one person, just one, there are more men like you than those who are out there doing the killing and committing the violence. So each one of those young men who is corrupt and who is don't have a future or whatever that's driving them to doing this, if he had a person like you in his life, I would guarantee you can change that person.
Yes.
You can change that person, and we can do this. This is our problem. We as men And as women, this is our problem. We can go out there and change that situation. That's all we have to do is just do it.
Now, Mr. Wright, I'm glad you agree with me, because I'm reminded of one of the times I was able to sit in on your class and actually participate with the ex-offenders. And there were so many of them, but there was one young man there that I will never forget. He had come home from prison.
Mm-hmm.
He had kids of his own. And he said this was the first time in his life that he had ever heard the information we shared. He also said that if he had more information as a youth, he probably would have made better choices and decisions. And I told him that this was the first time that I had participated in an ex-offenders program. And I said, I wasn't sure I can do it. He said, well, let me assure you, you can do it. You've done it. You've won me over. He said, and what I've learned here today, I'm going to share with my own children.
Yes.
So I will never forget that. Now, I don't know what he experienced before he came to my class, but it was obviously there was something traumatic. He wound up in prison, and he was there for some years.
Yes.
But he was able to turn his life around, and he was able to grasp the information we shared.
Yes.
So, please, don't
Yes.
give up.
Don't give up.
We can't give up.
Don't give up. And, there are situations where someone may be mentally ill. That's a different kind of situation, but most of our young people are not really mentally ill. Okay? So they may be corrupt. They may be any other number of names you want to give them, but they can turn their life around if they're given the right information on how to turn their life around. And this is something that's basic to our humanity. And so they just do not and have not received that information. Yes.
Right. I agree. Caller, you're on the air.
Yes, hello?
Hello.
Yes, hello?
Hello.
Yes, I would like to say regarding the program that I've always said the problem with children is irresponsible parenting. And the problem with responsible parenting is knuckleheaded children. So there's a dilemma. A lot of these babies that are having babies do not know how to parent. We need more parenting program. And also, it seems as though the grandmothers are getting younger and younger and younger. I've never heard of a 30-year-old grandmother. And most of these babies that are having babies, they look more like brothers and sisters. And you can't tell who's the mother, you can't tell who's the father. They're just getting younger and younger. So I just wanted to say the problem with, it seems like with parenting, and it seems as though there's more irresponsible parenting than it is responsible parenting. Thank you.
I agree.
Thank you. Mr. Wright, would you like to comment on that?
I agree with that caller. Excellent. But we, as an organization, we have been promoting parenting classes in the high school, starting in their freshman year. We believe at least a number of hours should be devoted to parenting for the entire 4 years, just on the assumption that this person is more than likely to become a parent at some time in their future life. So parenting is a critical subject that we wholeheartedly have been promoting for years. It just doesn't seem like CPS don't understand anything like that. They don't want, for whatever reason, they don't want to have that kind of training. Why not have that kind of training? So it's an important discipline, and it's so important that first 5 years. But you really have to have a systematic program or an education in how to parent. And as far as the age is concerned, throughout human history, in fact, within my lifetime, the age for marriage was as low as 13 in the South. I think they changed the law in 1967 in Mississippi. You could be 13 years old and get married as a female. And so, yes, I'm assuming if you could get married at 13 in Mississippi, or 14 or 15, then the grandparent would be 30, or 33 or 34. It's the new mindset of women today, and it may have been the same in the 30s. I'm sure you looked at some of the old jazz tapes, Ken Burns jazz tapes. And the women up in the clubs were dancing and boogie woogieing and doing all the great dances of that era. They probably were grandmothers and they were still out partying. And so, but I appreciate your point. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, Mr. Wright, Chicago is known now as the murder capital. Do you agree that that is an accurate description of Chicago?
Yes, I have to say yes, based on the numbers. Now, the murder rate in Detroit has dropped significantly because the people are no longer living there. So I would say, unfortunately, that's a title that we now have as a city, and it's extremely sad. But I do have a quick recommendation that I think would be very, very important for our president. That recommendation for his last term, I would like to see our president focus on his city, the town he lives in, and address this issue of violence in Chicago. I want him to come back to Chicago. I don't want him to build his library in Hawaii. It'd be great to have it built here in Chicago. But he has a chance to come back here and for his last 2 years, come back here and address this issue. He's a community organizer. He has all the skills. And just as an example, I know you probably watched the news, and he said that he's going to get the Congress to spend $2 billion to repatriate the children who are coming from Central America. Give us $2 billion, Mr. President. We need it right here in Chicago on the south and west side of the city. Make that investment in your own town, in your own community. And yes, if we had those kinds of funds, we could be at every public school in the city of Chicago with our program, and I guarantee you 5, 6, 7 years from now, the murder rate would be under 50. Under 50 a year. Give us 10 years, and we'll get that murder rate down to under 50. I know that's optimistic, but why not?
A lot of people have an opinion about them helping those children come here. Because they were saying today, I heard on the radio that there's such a great need here. Yes. That if you bring 50,000 children, they're not just going to come here today. You're going to have to feed them, clothe them, house them, and educate them. So that's going to be a continuous thing, you know. So I'm all for helping people and my neighbors. But there's a statement that I remember. It says that charity begins at home.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's where it begins.
And then when I've done that, I can spread it abroad. But there's such a great need. There's such a great need at home.
This is his town. This is his city. He started his career right here in the streets of Chicago. And I would like to see him go out on the high side as the President of the United States. And I'm absolutely certain that if he would invest, he wouldn't have to spend $2 billion. But I think it has to be something like a Marshall Plan that goes on for the next 10 years. You need to educate an entire generation away from this kind of degeneracy. And our program should be in every public school in the city of Chicago. And you and I both know, because you've done kindergartners, you've done first graders, you've done fifth grade. You and I both know that if they receive this kind of education, that they will not be criminals tomorrow. We know that.
Education and knowledge is power.
It is.
And when you know more, when you learn more, you can do better.
You can do better.
Better choices, better decisions.
Absolutely.
Well, Mr. Wright, I'm sorry to say we're out of time.
Oh, wow.
But it was a great show. It was a great show. I thank you for being my co-host again. Now, to my viewers, Thank you for tuning in to Let's Talk Etiquette. I ask that you would tune in next week. We will have another hot topic for you. And I ask that you would remember to practice your manners and share them with someone about how important it is to continue to be respectful and to stop the violence in the city of Chicago. If every person would do their part, wow, what a difference it would make. Have a great weekend. See you next week. Good night.
Good night.